Are there really racist dogs? I was watching an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm where Larry adopts a dog that only barks at black people. I made a joke about this to my girlfriend and she said there are a lot of dogs that do that. Are there really racist dogs? My mate's dog used to bark at black people, but it wasn't trained to do this as far as he knew. This was 90s rural Ireland, so there just weren't any black people around. Our two mates from school were the first non-white people the dog had ever seen, and we could only assume that was why. Imagine every person you've ever seen is so pale they border on translucent. You might be taken aback meeting a Congolese man too, I guess. When I was a child, my mom rescued a dog that ended up aggressively barking and snapping at people. With a darker complexion, but was as sweet and gentle to people with paler complexions. We later found out that while on the street a gang of youths with darker skin tortured him until they were stopped by a passerby. It was his trauma response. He had the same reaction when the television was on. My dog barks at black dogs. We know it's because some dogs find it hard to read a darker colored dog's body language. But we still call her a dog racist. It happens, but it's not racist in that they think some races are inferior. It tends to happen when the only black people or any other race than the owner they see are in a non-complimentary context. So like if handymen are coming to your house that are black and their owner's body language is clearly different than when a friend who comes over. The dog picks up on that, and if they don't see many other black people, they may get that way around random black people. It might be that there's just not many black people around. So when black people do approach the dog, it's like, who's this? Yes. But basically like babies. Not like supremacists. One of the places I worked at when I traveled to China was filled with dogs, and they would flip out when they saw white men walking around. They just weren't used to seeing white people. Maybe. My dog's previous owner was a black man. He abandoned the dog. She was very ill when I realized she'd been left and took her in. Since then, she barks aggressively and jerks the leash whenever we see a black man. Not the way people are racist. My friend adopted a dog who was abused and then dumped. She was terrified of black men and would growl and bark, and of course, my friend was mortified. The dog was also terrified of people in hoods or hats where you couldn't see the person's face, and we always assumed that she had been abused by either a dark-skinned person or someone who frequently wore a hood or hat. She eventually outgrew that behavior, but IKT took a year or so. As a guy with a racist dog, yes, he's terrified of black people. Or at least, used to be. And I adopted him when he was about a year old from a rescue that brings dogs to Ontario, Canada from somewhere in Texas. Murica. It was an awkward conversation with my weed guy who's black, but he was totally cool with it. Granted, my dog is also afraid of garbage bags, brooms, cowboy hats, construction workers, canes, walkers, people who walk with a limp, rubber chickens, the list goes on. Realistically, he's not racist. It's probably just a new thing for him. And he's a pansy just like most racists. Not according to Hank Hill. I don't know if it's racism, or just dogs that aren't used to people who look different than the humans they regularly associate with. Like, if a dog's family is all one color, then maybe people of other races fall into their mental uncanny valley. I dunno. It looks like a human. But not any of the humans I know. So I'm going to bark at it. Growing up, I had a golden retriever that spent his first few years of life in a very racially homogeneous environment. And we moved to a very diverse area, and it took him a while to adjust, and he was not friendly to new races at first. My dog doesn't like going to MLK Boulevard either. I remember reading somewhere that some dogs struggle to see facial features expressions on darker skinned humans when they're used to lighter skinned humans. Might be BS. I had a colleague that sometimes brought her dog to work. You wouldn't even know it was in the office, it was so well behaved and quiet. Until a black colleague walked past. And then the dog would go nuts. Honestly, my Japanese Akita doesn't like black kids. He is very friendly with black kids, he barks at them. I don't know why. Maybe it is because dogs don't see colors and can't distinguish facial traits. My dog hates black people. We have a place in Belize. Our neighbors who watch our house keep a dog there to guard it. We feed her when we are there. I'm not being an asshole. But most Belizeans do not think of dogs in the same way we do. Their attitudes are more like what was common in the 60s here anyway. It's not that they are intentionally cruel. They just don't think about their feelings. Our dog is perfectly safe around gringos. She's a really good dog. But if a local comes on the property, even one who we have made clear is a friend, she will try to bite them. My gringa dog comes with us there. She doesn't like Mennonite men. Goes nuts. My dog ran away for a few months and came back with a white pride tattoo on his flank. Really weird considering he was a black lab. My sister is a dog trainer sitter. She had a client where the big-ass dog would bark and attack any black male. She bring me over to meet him and luckily he just barks. One day, she bring him over to pet sit. I got home before she did and the dog was there. By now, we got used to each other. And he was somewhat friendly. I DK what I did but I was about let him out when he got up and started barking aggressively. I was so scared I let myself out. I'm black and I had a mixed pit bull puppy. He was like 7 months but was always playful with people and never aggressive. I ended up moving into a new house and my neighbors were white and they came over to meet me and to also meet my dog. For the first time ever, I heard him growl at a person. It was subtle but it shocked me. And then I thought about it. It was his first time meeting a white person. They won him over with some treats and they became best friends. We had a cockapoo who only barked at black people. I guess it's because we didn't have black people over much. Once we befriended a black person, she stopped it. In fact, she loved the guy. She also barked at horses on TV. God forbid a black person was riding a horse on TV. All hell broke loose. If the dog wasn't exposed to a variety of people in their formative years, it's possible they developed a fear of certain things as an adult dog. It's not always race either. I know dogs that are fearful of tall people, men, big beards, hats, etc. Dogs can pick up on their owner's hostility, but they can also have their own trauma and weird association. In that case, it's not really race, because dogs don't have a context for that. It's just that they associate certain things, like dark skin, an accent, etc., with a bad memory. I had a dog who was absolutely terrified of men with beards. Seems completely possible to me, but it would be due to past training or trauma. It's relatively common for dogs to fear or be aggressive towards people of one sex due to having been abused. And dogs aren't actually entirely colorblind like some comments state. So I don't see why not. Not socialized dogs. Dogs who don't go out and or interact with all kinds of people will distrust people or animals who are different from their owners. Also, dark colors are naturally feared. You can see videos of turtles attacking dark things. It's an instinct against unknown shadows animals because they can't see the features to recognize them. You can probably train your dog to do that if you're so inclined. It's not racism, they just have aggression stress triggers from past history like humans do.